Folks, if you've experienced similar situations or know someone around you who has, write them in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and share to support us for more of these stories. Every night at exactly 3 a.m., horrific screams rise from the Iraqi battlefield. When the soldiers who heard these screams learned where the sound was coming from, they were terrified. November 2004. In the city of Fallujah, Iraq, one of the United States' largest military operations, Operation Phantom Fury, was ongoing. The city was witnessing intense clashes between insurgent forces and American troops. Every street was a battlefield, every building a potential grave. Camp Liberty was a temporary military base established 8 kilometers outside Fallujah. The 2nd Brigade of the 3rd Infantry Division was stationed here. This 150-soldier unit was being used as a forward operating base for operations in the city. Sergeant Carlos Martinez, 28 years old, came from San Antonio, Texas. He was on his 2nd Iraq tour and was one of his unit's most experienced non-commissioned officers. His friends called him Diablo, both for his courage and his aggressiveness in enemy contacts. The area where Camp Liberty was established was strategically perfect. On a high hill, surrounded by desert terrain, with good visibility and a defensible position. But the soldiers would soon discover other characteristics of this location. The first week of the operation was extremely intense. Daily patrols, house-to-house searches, firefights. Carlos's platoon was operating in the most dangerous sectors in the city center. They were taking heavy casualties. On the night of November 7th, Carlos experienced a firefight he would never forget. The platoon was trying to clear a compound that was an insurgent stronghold. According to intel reports, there were high-value targets inside. During the breach operation, they encountered heavy resistance. RPG fire, machine guns, sniper fire. After 4 hours of intense combat, the compound was secured. But the cost was heavy. 3 KIA killed in action, 7 WIA wounded in action. Carlos had killed 12 enemy combatants that night. Confirmed kills. In close quarters, combat some hand-to-hand. War is hell, but necessary. While exfiltrating from the compound, Carlos noticed a strange detail. One of the killed enemy fighters, a young Iraqi, looked at Carlos in his dying breath and spoke very clearly in English. "You will hear us. Every night we will call for you." Carlos was shocked. Most Iraqi insurgents didn't know English, and the dying words were very specific. When they returned to Camp Liberty, the unit conducted debriefing. Casualties were evacuated. Normal post-combat procedures. Carlos didn't mention the Iraqis' last words to anyone. When the 2nd week of the operation began, they settled into camp routine. Day missions, night security, maintenance. But something had changed. On the night of November 14th, Carlos was on guard duty. Walking post on camp perimeter, 0200 to 0600 shift. Everything was normal until 3 a.m. At exactly 3 a.m., he heard a scream from the distance, a human scream, but very loud and prolonged, as if it came from extreme pain. The sound's direction came from Fallujah's direction. Carlos checked the radio. No activity report from friendly positions. Probably civilian casualty or insurgent operation. But the scream continued for 10 minutes. Non-stop screaming. Then suddenly stopped. The next night, the same thing. 3 o'clock exactly. Same duration, same intensity. This time, Carlos asked the other guards, "Did you hear that screaming?" "What's screaming, Sarge?" No one had heard it, only Carlos. The 3rd night, Carlos specifically prepared. Audio recorder, binoculars, night vision. When the screaming started at 3 a.m., everything was ready. This time, the screaming was different. Multiple voices, different languages, but all in extreme agony. And it was recorded, but when he did playback in the morning, the recorder was empty. No sound. Carlos began thinking he was experiencing combat stress reaction. PTSD symptoms, auditory hallucinations were common, but on the fourth night, another guard heard it too. Private Johnson, 19 years old, first deployment. He had also heard screaming at 3 a.m., same as Carlos's description. "Sarge, this is so fucked up. The sounds seem like they're coming from underground." Carlos realized the problem wasn't psychological. Something was happening. Fifth night, Carlos and Johnson were on guard duty together. At 2:55, they took ready positions. Waiting, 3 a.m. Screaming started, but this time much closer, as if it was coming from the camp perimeter. Carlos tried to locate the source using night vision. The screaming's direction pointed to the northeast section of the camp. There was nothing there, just empty desert. But the screaming intensified. Multiple voices, different languages. Carlos could distinguish some words: Arabic, Farsi, and English. "Why did you kill us?" "We want revenge. You will join us." Carlos's blood froze. These voices were coming from killed enemies. Johnson had heard too. "Sarge, do you understand what these things are saying?" "Yeah, I understand." The screaming lasted 15 minutes, then stopped abruptly. The next morning, Carlos reported to platoon leader Lieutenant Davis. Davis was skeptical, but Carlos's reputation was solid. Investigation was authorized. A day patrol was sent to the northeast section. Detailed search. Nothing unusual could be found. Normal desert terrain, no structures, no evidence of human activity. But the metal detector operator detected multiple metallic objects at very shallow depth. Excavation was ordered. Shallow graves. Dozens of them. Recently buried bodies. From enemy combatants, civilian casualties, and American soldiers. This area had been used as a temporary burial ground for immediate burial during combat operations. Bodies were supposed to be transferred to proper facilities later, but were forgotten in the confusion. The northeast section of Camp Liberty was directly over a mass grave. The discovery shocked Unit Command. Bodies were immediately exhumed and transferred for proper burial. But the damage was done. That night, the screaming didn't stop. It intensified even more. Carlos could now recognize the voices individually. The Iraqi fighter from the compound, American soldiers from previous battles, civilians caught in crossfire, all accusing him, all demanding justice. "You killed us. Now you pay. Join us in death." Carlos was referred for psychological evaluation. Sessions with field psychiatrist Dr. Sarah Kim. Survivor guilt, Dr. Kim diagnosed, combined with combat stress. Auditory hallucinations are common. But other soldiers hear it too, Doc. Mass hysteria. One person's hallucination can spread to others under extreme stress. Carlos was started on medication, anti-anxiety, sleep aids. But the screaming continued. Worse, other soldiers began hearing too. Soon, half the camp was reporting the 3 a.m. screaming. Camp morale collapsed. Sleep deprivation, constant fear, psychological warfare by an unseen enemy. Lieutenant Davis sent a situation report to higher command. Response: maintain operational readiness. Ignore distractions. But soldiers couldn't ignore. Screaming every night, 3 a.m. sharp, getting stronger, more accusatory. Carlos decided to conduct individual investigation. By conversing with an Iraqi linguist, he tried to understand the Arabic words in the screaming. The translation was horrifying. The blood of innocents cries from the ground. You have awakened the restless dead. Your camp sits on cursed soil. All who sleep here will join the departed. According to Islamic belief, improper burial of the dead creates spiritual unrest. Souls cannot find peace until proper rites are performed. Carlos researched local history. This area was historically a tribal burial ground. Centuries of dead buried there. The American military had unknowingly desecrated sacred land, and during combat operations, fresh bodies buried on top amplified the spiritual disturbance. Carlos presented his findings to Dr. Kim. Doc, this isn't psychological. It's a spiritual problem. Sergeant, you're experiencing combat-induced psychosis. Supernatural explanations are coping mechanisms. But Carlos was convinced. The solution was spiritual, not medical. He contacted a local imam. The imam confirmed, American soldiers build camp on cursed ground. The dead cannot rest until proper ceremony is performed. Carlos made a proposal to his platoon. Perform Islamic burial rites, a spiritual cleansing ceremony. The soldiers were desperate, willing to try anything. A secret ceremony was planned. The imam was brought to camp. Traditional prayers, incense, specific rituals were performed. That night, 3 a.m., waiting. Silence. No screaming. The first peaceful night in weeks. But the celebration was premature. The next night, the screaming returned, louder, angrier. You cannot appease us with empty rituals. Blood debt must be paid. One life for many lives. The imam explained, spirits demand justice. Someone must answer for desecration. Carlos understood. Spiritual balance required sacrifice. That night, Carlos made a decision. He walked out into the desert exactly at 3 a.m. I'm here, he shouted. Take me. The screaming stopped. Silence. Then a single voice, clear, calm. Justice served. Rest comes now. Carlos collapsed. Heart attack. Natural causes, the medical examiner declared. Found the next morning by patrol. Peaceful expression on his face. The screaming never returned to Camp Liberty. Operations continued. Mission completed successfully. Carlos was posthumously awarded Bronze Star for exceptional service. Official report, natural death due to combat stress. But the soldiers knew the truth. Carlos had sacrificed himself for the unit's peace. Camp Liberty was decommissioned after the operation. The area was returned to Iraqi control. The local imam consecrated the land. Proper Islamic burial rites were performed for all remains. Today, the area is peaceful. No reports of disturbances. Carlos Martinez was buried at Arlington National Cemetery, hero's funeral. But sometimes, on very quiet nights in Fallujah, locals report hearing a single voice at 3 a.m., an American voice, speaking Arabic, rest now, justice served, protecting the living from the restless dead. Eternal guard duty.